good.
Yeah, all set.
We will call the Monday, August 24th work session of the Jamestown City Council to order. It's good to be back, everybody. I feel like it's the first day of school. Everybody's got their little seat. Don't move, you gotta stay in the right seat. And we'll take mask breaks when, just like we're gonna do in schools. And we don't usually do the roll.
No.
I got used to doing that, but we don't do it anymore.
President Olsen, the only thing I would say, if folks could speak up, it's very hard to hear with the mask, and the streaming device doesn't always pick that up, so please speak loudly.
Just a point of question. I'm just gonna ask this to see if people's comfort level is. If the chair people, can they do this when they're giving their report? To just make it easier to, I mean, just, I don't know how that, I know in some places that.
I mean, you're all spaced 6 feet apart, so it's up to you all. I guess maybe if the chairperson feels comfortable, I mean, you should ask each other.
Just throwing it out there, so that it's easier for the people to hear and understand what's being said.
I agree.
Is that okay?
Okay.
We have
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
I don't have to speak tonight, so.
All right, there you go. I mean,
Speak
it
with the sign.
that makes it easier for people to understand and do that. Do we have any correspondence?
We do not.
We do not.
No.
Okay. Are you here to speak or to?
Just to see you.
Public
Yeah,
hearing.
I'm just here for-
It's not for
Oh,
identification.
not to speak. Okay, good. All right, so then we'll move on to finance and Councilwoman Eklund.
Thank you very much. First resolution we have is authorizing the mayor and the police chief, director of public safety to receive grant funds from the U.S. Department of Justice, Bureau of Justice Assistance, 2020 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant, which is the JAG program, in the amount of $16,094 to be utilized by Jamestown Police Department to purchase a new DVR video system to cover 3 separate interview rooms, subject to the approval of the Corporation Council as to form. And also note on this that a public hearing is scheduled for August 25th, 2020, 9 a.m. in the police training room, and will be live streamed, as this meeting will be closed to the public. Anybody have any questions or issues?
Is it a public hearing about the spending, or is it a public hearing about?
Yes.
The purpose, why we have it? Okay, it's about using the money.
Correct.
Okay.
Councilman Brackman, if I may, just one additional thing. If members of the public would like to submit comments, they should do so by tomorrow morning to the clerk, either via email or dropped off at City Hall.
Perfect. Thank you. The second resolution is the resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Passport Labs Incorporated, amending and extending the terms of the December 12, 2016 parking agreement for the period of July 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020, subject to the approval as to form by the Corporation Council. Not sure if any of you have any comments to add to this. It's just extending the agreement, but some people probably are not up to speed with the agreement from 2016, so.
I can speak to that.
Sure.
Councilman Brackman. So the Passport Labs, which was called ComPlus at the time, handles our parking software, our ticketing software, for when you go over in a meter, things like that. We do have a contract with them. It was the intention of the administration last year that this year we would RFP, put out an RFP, request for proposals for a new ticketing software program. With COVID, we found it very difficult to go out and make those bids this year. So we've discussed extending our contract to the end of the year with Passport Labs, which will still handle our ticketing. They will still continue being able to pay online with the ticketing program. They'll still continue their normal fee. They take a percentage of it. The only thing I will add is this does add a collections service until the end of the year. We have a lot of tickets that are still unpaid, and so Passport has asked us to help in that process. by providing collections of past due tickets. And if that happens, they would receive 36% of whatever is collected, and the rest would go to the city for past due unpaid parking tickets. Again, that's only to the end of the year. Our intention is to put out an RFP in the next couple months.
Question, could we possibly, I know in the past sometimes we have done where the tickets we did it where, thank you.
Amnesty program?
And, yes, is that something that, it seems to be pretty successful.
The issue with amnesty is that, we did one not too long ago, and to do it too close together creates an issue for a bunch of reasons. So
Okay.
the timing of it is kind of critical as to when you do it.
Okay.
And I think we're too close to the last time we do it, because then people just tend to let their bills ride and just pay without the fee.
Well, it's kind of different, I mean, it's a different time too, I mean, 'cause we're in this culvert, and people, you know, are losing their jobs, and so,
Right.
I know this could be a special, not even, maybe not as long as a period, but, you know, their unemployment is being cut, there's just, people are really stressed for funds, now.
Yeah.
How much do we have in unpaid? About how much do we have outstanding?
Probably like 400 and some dollars.
Yeah.
Close to half a million.
Close to $500,000.
Of parking tickets, unpaid parking
Of
tickets?
unpaid parking
Correct.
tickets.
With fines.
Yep.
And the problem is, like you stated, if people are out of jobs, that's probably gonna be one of the last things they're going to pay, because they,
Mhm.
I know in the previous ones, I think we netted what, $35,000
Correct.
maybe? And it's a lot of work for the clerical staff, I know, Jen, we can probably.
But the return is very small.
I mean, it helps, but, and again, I think the timing of the year too is usually better.
the beginning of the year.
We've done it at the beginning of the year, I think, after the tax.
Yeah.
In the middle, just after tax season.
I think that a little more money.
Councilmember James, so some cities around this time do amnesties to provide backpacks for children going to school, or for food pantries, or for soup kitchens. That is also a potential option. It's obviously not a revenue generator, but
Right.
we could consider for the tickets that we may not be able to collect on because they are just too old. That might be a potential to do, but that's something you all can discuss.
That's interesting.
I will tell you that the major backpack drive driven by the accident is not happening this year, just because so many of the schools are not in session. They do have, you know, the banks are not open to collecting donations, so that's prohibitive for that kind of stuff this year, so just a thought.
And kids are still gonna need school supplies, so that's a great idea. I really like that. What would we need, I mean, if we were to do that, what would we need to do? Say we're gonna do, the MC is gonna be for backpacks for kids, our families.
You would need to do a resolution authorizing the amnesty. If you were to do that, I would recommend that you would do an amnesty for set years of tickets. So maybe tickets that are too old to collect on. So if you have unpaid parking tickets from 2000 and blank to 2000 and blank, you could, you know, we're bringing school supplies, and those tickets may or may not be waived, or the penalties waived, and then you can go pay the original ticket, $10 ticket. That's another option.
Financial person in me, and going to ask, where are we paying for the school supplies from?
Well, I'm thinking the people who own tickets. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
You
we
said
would
the
not
embassy,
purchase
that
the school
we wouldn't
supplies,
do
yeah.
it, the people who own the tickets would have to bring in the supplies. The
You're
book
kind of
bags and the supplies.
suggesting like a can, when they do the canned food drive, bring in some food and you get a discount on your ticket, or you get, you know, I'm thinking it's, you know, movie tickets, people do it all the time.
Right.
And I'm
Where
sure
you
that's.
bring in things, and I think that's what you're implying.
Right, I'm not thinking that we do it, that, you know, that the people do it. And I know that it's probably even more of a headache when Jennifer starts saying, quiet. But I just think that's a great idea, because if organizations that usually do it and do it very good job at doing it, and the schools are still open, and these kids are not gonna have the supplies, that are provided by different organizations. And so I think it'd be a great one, it's a great thing for the city to pick it up. When I say city, I mean our community to pick it up and provide for these kids. I'm just, you know, I would like to do a resolution on that. I don't know how.
We're happy to work with you to put together a resolution with
Okay.
the Corporation Council and the Parking Division.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else on that? Okay, the next resolution is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute change order number 1 to the Riverwalk Skateboard Park Agreement with Grindline Skateparks Incorporated, 4619 14th Avenue Southwest, Seattle, Washington, 98106, to include the schedule adjustment below. Preliminary site work, which includes the survey and other things, August through September of 2020. Community outreach, conceptual design, September through November 2020. Design and permitting, November 2020 through January 2021. Construction to begin, if weather permits, March 2021 through July 21. For a no-cost change order to the original agreement, subject to the approval of the Corporation Council as to form. And I particularly like the no cost.
I think it's because of, did you mention this, I think, in another meeting where, or maybe it was Jeff, going back and forth between them, it was just getting hard, and the skate park was the designers of the skate park.
I believe that was Jeff.
Where we pushed it back,
I think it was the
COVID,
culvert.
and we pushed it back a little bit because.
That's what it was the travel ban really made it problematic for them to get out and even look at the site,
So
so.
this change order, what you
It's
were
just
talking
pushing
about
everything
the other-
forward a little
Okay.
bit.
Okay, any other questions?
And the Tony Hawk Foundation is.
They've already approved it.
Yep.
As the main funder.
Okay, resolution number 4 is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with G.L. Olsen Incorporated, 5529 Thumb Road, Dewittville, New York, 14728, for construction of ADA restroom addition to the concession stand at Jackson Taylor Park for a total bid of $303,800, subject to the approval of the Corporation Council as to form, and the project will be funded with a community block grant CDBG ADA improvement funds. Questions, comments? I know Vicky's very happy.
I'm so excited. I'm so ecstatic because we, you know, in the original, thing of putting the concession stand, we did have a bathroom, but there was something, I don't know what happened, but I'm just so happy to see that there's going to be, a better restroom facilities. And closer.
ADA compliant.
And that's the, yes, because right now you have to go up that hill, and
No.
it's not very, yes, or go all the way around to the back and then come up, so I'm just ecstatic and so happy and thrilled. You can't see it, but I'm
No,
just
I
smiling.
echo your
I'm
comments,
smiling.
because if it wasn't ADA compliant, I would be
Yes.
complaining.
$300,000, it better be.
I understand that, but you'd be surprised, I told you, the town of Cheektowaga built their first accessible park this year.
Oh
And
my
how many do
goodness.
we have?
Oh, wow.
So if you don't think that we aren't a better community for all of the ADA things that we have done, including curb ramps, the bathrooms, the accessible pathways, yeah, we are far ahead of many other communities. And I, for one, really appreciate all the efforts and thank you.
And I'd like to publicly thank Don Williams for always keeping that in the forefront, you know, of all the brand new playgrounds. He's always made sure that, there was, that the special needs, children were, would be able to play in the park, so, you know, so he's always brought that to the forefront, kept that in the designs.
Anything else? Okay, resolution number 5, we have a resolution authorizing the mayor, B, to enter into a certain temporary easement agreement with St. Nicholas Greek Orthodox Church, 15 Francis Street, Jamestown, New York, said easement to be subject to the approval as to form by the Office of Corporation Counsel. And this is a storm sewer drain, Jeff, is that correct?
Correct. This is a temporary easement. Once we get the pipe in the ground, we've already agreed in principle that there'll be a permanent easement that'll come later. But based on the fact that it's coming down that very steep hill, we weren't exactly sure where it would wind up, so you'll be seeing this again for a permanent easement.
And just as a note, I gave everyone a new resolution. The original resolution had permanent in there, so we've changed that to temporary. That's the only difference.
Thank you. One last thing is, just for discussion purposes, is regarding the second quarter sales tax payment. Ryan?
Yeah, so I'll just be brief here. We did receive our second quarter sales tax payment a few weeks ago, beginning of August. It came in at $1,471,458. That was down $228,000 from the prior year and down about 13.4%. Looking ahead, we're probably projecting anywhere in the 12.5% below prior year for the third and fourth quarters, which would put us down about $500,000 to prior year and about $300,000 to what we had in our 2020 budget. So I threw a few charts in there to kind of see where we've come in over the last few years. And I don't know if anyone has any other questions. That's kind of all that update.
I'm not surprised at all, Ryan, and just, it's sad, but not surprised, unfortunately.
Our only hope that we could, make this up, that things get a little bit better, we will do better than the projection for the third and fourth quarter. Things continue to go in the right direction. May not be as bad as what you're estimating here, but obviously prepare for the worst and hope for the best.
Yeah, because unfortunately, there aren't many companies that are doing and seeing profits in the area. Unfortunately.
And all the businesses have been shut down, still closed.
On a good note, we are, and we're hiring.
I know, I heard you guys are talking about openings.
Yes.
For anybody watching.
Brian, are you still getting monthly updates or not?
Yeah, and that's actually where that 12.5% is.
Okay.
Have I come up with that from the county? Yeah.
Right.
Or keep us up to date on that.
I don't believe there's anything else coming out of finance right now. We may have some stuff with finance written at the end, but right now that's it, unless somebody has some specific question.
Okay, thank you. And we'll move on to public safety and Councilman Sheldon.
Thank you, Mr. President. We also had the resolution, authorizing the mayor and the police chief to receive the grant funds from the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant for $60,094. The next is a local ordinance. We talked about this last week regarding the rezoning of tattoo parlors into commercial districts, C1, 2, 3, and 4, and also the RC district. It was restricted originally to most of the manufacturing districts. Interest with somebody who wanted to set up a tattoo parlor. East 4th Street was rejected by the zoning board last year, and the zoning board, and was also the planning commission reviewed the ordinance, and they've recommended that we change the ordinance at this time. Correct, Elliot?
Yes.
Any discussion on that? The next is local law, city charter, C-72, to establish residency requirements for police officers in the city of Jamestown. Talk about this. Looking for a minimum of 5 years of continuous residency in the city of Jamestown. Once an officer has been hired, this is not retroactive to current officers. They also do have a 6-month grace period per se to establish their primary domicile within the city boundaries.
Brent, does this have to be part of the collective bargaining agreement? I think it's part of, we can't just arbitrarily decide this, they have to agree to it under contract, don't they?
So I can speak to that. The public officers law actually says that a municipality with under 200 police members may pass a local law allowing residency requirements. There are many cities, including a lot in western New York, that have this. Lakewood, Tonawanda, Buffalo, Niagara Falls. I'm going to look towards Elliot Romano to give me the rest of the list. He's got a few of them.
Orchard Park, Village of Hamburg, Lackawanna, Town of Tonawanda, Amherst, Lancaster, Cheektowaga, Utica, Williamsville, and Erie, PA. And
Are they
Erie,
all-
PA is not governed by that.
Are they all the 5-year? I mean, we talked about this a little bit before, some places are, you have to live there for the entirety, and is it like,
So,
what are most places?
so most places are lifetime appointments, specifically the suburbs of Buffalo. Utica is 5 years. That's what I looked at, and I spoke to their corporation counsel about it, and they were balancing recruitment versus the residency issue. Lackawanna had 12 years, Buffalo had 7 years. And, you know, for Erie, PA and Williamsville, they had a mileage restriction from them, but the rest were all lifetime appointments throughout the term of employment.
Other bargaining units would, it would be required that we negotiate that. This is specific to state law. I believe firefighters also have to live so far from a fire station. That's part of the state law. And police, unfortunately, fall under a different category. Jim?
Yeah, and I will add, this is, you know, fairly commonplace, the residency of New York State, it's allowed by the state. As it stands today, our police department only has 27% of active officers living in the city of Jamestown, which is the lowest out of the bargaining units. The next highest would be the firefighter, or next lowest would be the firefighters, which are at 40% to 43%. The other units, CSEA, 91% of CSEA members live in the city of Jamestown, as it stands right now. 79% of AFSCME members live in the city of Jamestown, or at least they reported for their payroll purposes in the city of Jamestown. And for our JCAA group, 88% live in the city of Jamestown. So there's a wide range where we have most employees that live in the city of Jamestown, and our police department does not.
And again, I think it's worth noting that people question why it isn't a blanket thing for all employees, but each unit, because of state law, we're bound to different requirements. We can't just put a blanket statement out. It says every rank and file employee must live for a certain amount of time. Each different unit, depending on whether it's police, fire, DPW, whatever, have different state protections or requirements that we have to follow.
Yes.
Just want to get that out because people want to know why we were just choosing the fire department and not this group and that group and that group. There's reasons by state law that they can't do that to other ones.
You know, and part of that reason, just to note, when we did research on this before, is we talk about New York City and that borough. Many of the people in public safety cannot afford to live in the vicinity where they're serving because of the cost of living and the wage they make. So, multiple firemen, I'm sure that's where this originated, live not only, you know, north, they live way out on the island or wherever. So I'm certain that's taken into consideration for a lot of these state laws, and we're lumped into that.
If I may add, on that, you know, one of our concerns I looked at was with civil service. And as it stands right now, we have to interview the top 3 of the top getting score in civil service. So what we're having a situation is we have individuals that may score 95 or 90 that are very lukewarm on the city of Jamestown, and you have individuals in the 85 bracket who are very pro, we want to work for the city of Jamestown, we want to live in the city of Jamestown, and really the only thing that distinguishes them is 5 points. So this would open up a whole class of employees to us that live in the city of Jamestown or that want to work in the city of Jamestown for hiring purposes.
I would like to clarify that the way the law is written right now is, Councilman Sheldon, you mentioned you would have 6 months. There's already a probationary period for a new officer in the city. And so during that time period, they would be given 6 months to find residency within the city. At any time during the first 5 years of service, if it's found that they no longer live in the city, they would get a 30 days notice to correct, so it would not be a shock. They would have a month to find and secure residency, and obviously we would work with them to ensure that. But I do want to reiterate, as Councilmember Eklund pointed out, at the starting salary of a police officer, it is more than enough to buy a very nice home in the city of Jamestown, or to rent an apartment and to be part of the community. In no way do we believe our officers are not part of the community. They very much are. But I will tell you, just from my personal experiences in running for mayor, I did a ride-along with our police department. And so many of them see this as a job that they come to and then go home, right? For all of us, this is not only our job, but this is where we live, this is our life. We have to see the people that we know in the supermarket, on the street. They stop us, they ask us questions. And I'm not saying that as a police officer, you won't get that too if you live here, but that's part of what we do, and we know we have to live in the city, right? There's obviously other challenges, other risks, but we want our officers to be integrated in the community at least the first 5 years. And that is a very good time to get them integrated, right? When you look at even teachers, teachers require at least 5 years to become a master at their craft, right? And that's when they need to be where they're serving. It's the same thing for our police officers as well. So we are trying to encourage them. I do want to let council members know that we recognize that there is a lot of talent out there, and we want to attract them here. The interim Chief Jackson, as well as the comptroller Thompson, and I have been reviewing to see if there's any incentives and we can provide officers to join not only the Jamestown Police Department, but an additional incentive to come and move and be in the city even before this law is passed. We recognize that we have several positions that we need to fill, that you will all vote on being able to fill those positions next Monday. And we want to be able to attract the talent. We found that there are not a lot of officers currently on an available civil service list for us to choose from. And we are going to need to recruit outside of the county, potentially, in order to find officers. And so we want to be able to attract them, not only to join the police force, but also to provide them even a small incentive, whether that's just a small amount of moving expenses, to come and make Jamestown their home.
I would like to just expand and give an example of, as everyone knows, and I've been adamant that I agree with officers should be living in the city. I'll give you an example. Last night, my neighbor, his son, had his bike stolen off his front porch. Living and working there, someone that's not living, a police officer that's not living in the city might not worry about something like that or think about that, but with living right there, and they see that going on in their neighborhood, they're vested to their neighborhood, and they care about if the neighborhood boy has his bike stolen, because it's their street, it's their block, and it's just an example of that. Simplistic, but it is an example. As far as Mr. Raimondo, I think I just want clarification is when you were talking about civil service lists and scores, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're not stating that we're going to bypass high scores and take lower scores because they're residents of Jamestown already. Is that correct?
No, we would still interview high scores on the civil service list, but this would allow us, if the candidate is not interested in living in the city of Jamestown, or not interested in working in the city of Jamestown, we've had that instance before, this would automatically preclude them from becoming a Jamestown police officer, and we would be able to move further down the list. Part of this is wanting to find individuals who want to work for the city of Jamestown rather than just have a paycheck and leave at the first available opportunity.
and I did witness that on the job. It was very frustrating for me as a citizen to see officers that never worked or never lived a single day in the city, and that they would take their paycheck and drive back to Westfield or Fredonia or whatever, and it was very frustrating on my part. And it would be even more frustrating when I would see these individuals that they would move up in rank. So now you're talking about they're making even more money and taking more money from the citizens and going back to their communities. So I think this is a good thing.
A question on that, on the higher rate. Now, that's still for them for 5 years, so we're not talking, just for clarification, we're not like, the chief of police. We're saying he wants to live here for 5 years. You know,
No,
the higher
he has to
ranking
be a
officers,
city
I just want clarification.
Department head would have to, they all.
So, but the higher ranks, they would still just have to stay here for 5 years and then,
Only if they were hired within the 5 years, but typically the higher ranks have been here for more than 5, 10, 15 years. So they would already be past the 5-year period. They could either still be living in the city, or after their 5th year, they could decide to move out.
so they could be grandfathered, but so just clear, let me
Yes.
just clear my head.
It-
So if I'm living, so I'm a captain and I live in Westfield. So now we do this, so because I've been working here for 15 years.
You don't have to
I don't have to
move to the
move.
city. No.
That's what I just want
We
to.
keep- we're not forcing
I just want to
anybody.
make that clear.
It's from new hires for the
I just
first
want- I
5
just want
years.
to
So
clear that.
our hope is, I mean,
People
5
do-
years is not probably the smallest margin that we talked about. And we talked about this before. Our hope is that when you hire a new police officer, generally they're in their early 20s, they get established in the city, they live here for a while, maybe they get married, they buy a house. And we're hoping that once they start investing in the city, they stay here. Now, we can't force them to stay here. At the beginning of their 6th year, they might say, I'm gonna go move to Lakewood, or Venus, or Westfield, or whatever. We can't really stop them, but we're hoping that by them being here 5 years and investing in the community, that they'll choose to just stay here. And, you know, we'd have to I would say after 5 years, we'd have to reevaluate how many of those new hirees under this new program do we still have. So in the year 2025, let's say, we could look at it and say, well, it really only netted us 8 more people, or 10 more people. At that point, you might wanna say, well, let's make it 7, or 10, or lifetime, or whatever. But this will at least be a start, and again, hopefully, encourage them to invest in the city. So if a young kid, let's say, starts at 22, he gets married at 24, 25, 26, they start a family, they buy a house, they stay here. And I guess that's, we're trying to.
Yeah, I get that, but I just want to make it clear that if I drop my higher up, now I'm making more money, I'm still taking the city money and I'm going to Westfield and spend it. Regardless.
That's, under this, that's the option they would have after 5 years.
No, I
And
get it.
generally, like someone said, someone's usually not getting promoted, to, say, sergeant, within 5 years. And they're usually on the job longer than that. They have more experience than that, by the time they're getting their first level of promotion. But, they would obviously surpass the 5-year mark and could be living outside the city at the time of their promotion.
Yeah, I get up, I just want to make it clear and people know that it does not include those who have already. You know,
Correct.
like, so tomorrow we say, okay, this is it, so I'm like a captain, I don't have to move.
No, it's not retroactive.
So my money's still going to Westfield.
Correct.
Thank you, Jamestown.
Nobody's been forced
Yeah,
to move in.
thank you, city.
And, Councilmember James, you, obviously, you can amend this, we can change this law, or make it lifetime if you all wish. We started with the 5 years as what we've seen Utica and some others do, but there are other communities in Western New York, many of them, which, as Corporation Council mentioned, have a lifetime requirement. Places like Niagara Falls actually hire detectives to determine if you are living in Niagara Falls, the city, and if you aren't, you're out. So we're not saying that that's what we want to do, but
Right.
obviously
Right,
you all as a
right.
legislative body can make that choice. But you know,
Right.
we wanted to start somewhere.
Sure.
The biggest
Unfortunately, you can't legislate morality.
Yeah.
No, but to Councilman Rosa, I appreciate your point, because I agree with you. If you're living here and you're vested here, you have a bigger stake in what goes on. And if you're raising your kids here, or you live here in the community, you're gonna be more concerned about everything that's going on. You know, you pay taxes, but you also receive a paycheck from the city in retirement. You know, you have a different interest and a different value in what's going on versus someone who's working and leaving. They come in, they do their time, and they leave. I
Sure,
agree.
when-
I don't know that I'm convinced that 5 years is, I know what
Enough.
you're saying, Tony, but I'm not convinced that 5 years is enough to make somebody commit to staying here. Because just 5 years seems like a minimal requirement. It really does to me. And I don't know that I wanna say, personally, lifetime doesn't sound bad to me either. We're investing, we're paying your salary. Why don't you wanna stay here? And if you're looking at this as I wanna get in and get out as fast as I can, how much are you committed to doing better by this community?
Well, a common argument has always been among the officers was that they worried about, arresting people, incarcerating people, and then running into these same people later on and things happen. Obviously, it's more of a valid concern now with what's going on in our country and the anti-police sentiment that's going on. Many years ago, it wasn't so much so. I told people, and I had a conversation with the chief about this, that in my entire 23 years of working, I only was approached by 2 individuals when I was off duty and was given a hard time. One was at Home Depot outside the city, and the other one was just doing some yard work. Someone walked by and mumbled some stuff. I've always said that if you treat people decently, and you treat people fairly, and they know that you are doing your job, and you are being decent to them, and that you are fair, they're probably not going to give you a hard time later on when they see you when you're not working, because they know that you treated them decent and as a human being.
But you could say the same thing for teachers that teach in the community where their kids live too and go to school. I mean, I grew up in a community where the teachers' kids and the principal's son all went to the same school. They didn't work in a different district. So I know what you're talking about, but you learn to deal with it. And like you say, most people are decent and they're going to deal with it. But it's a small community. People are shopping in the same place, whether you live in the city or live outside the city. You're gonna run into people.
You know, and we don't arrest people, but the council, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, we live in our districts, and, you know, sometimes, you get those, oh, great job, but we all know, sitting around the table, sometimes you don't get that good job, you know? And so, and I think about, I know there's a few officers that were born and raised here, Officer Peach, when you arrest your family, or, there's other officers that I know that had to, arrest their family, but I know they still go to their family reunions, and, you know what I mean, it's just a way of life. I mean, we have to do it, and I don't know, when I'm a young officer and I'm starting a new family, 5 years, I have a child, I can get out of Jamestown before school, you know what I mean? So where's the investment, so I'm kind of like a little longer myself, so that you can truly invest. I don't like us
I'm
doing
not
money.
married to the 5 years.
Well,
I'm
was
just
just
saying, we're
giving
just
you-
discussing, we're just discussing,
Right.
but I just feel like,
Do whatever
I have
you
an
want.
issue, us giving money and it rolls out, if you're not vested in your community. And I think that's a poor excuse to say that, well, if we arrest somebody, then I don't wanna run into them. Well, we all have, I have a family member I don't wanna see. If somebody knocks at my door, what I'm gonna do, But,
Is
I mean, we
Lakewood
all have that.
lifetime, Elliot?
Yes,
Lakewood for full-time is lifetime.
Lakewood is lifetime?
Yes.
but they only have, what, 12?
Right.
They have 12 full-time. But they haven't had an issue recruiting for those positions.
Well, I think it's also a long-term conversation. We start talking about how do we get our own students, young people, interested in law enforcement in general. I don't think many of them see that as something anybody's ever talked to them about. So I think the more we do with regard to any of our civil service police, fire, you know, city clerk, account clerk, typist. I mean, that's where you start to get people who aren't gonna leave the area because they've lived here for so long. So I think we have to look a lot more long-term too, but I was gonna ask you, Elliot, is like Utica, when we talk about, you know, Tony was saying after 5 years, how many are still there? What do they say? Did you ask at all how many of the officers are still living in this city?
I did not. They
Okay.
said Utica had previously had a lifetime, and they felt that they were not being able to, they were losing a lot of their officers to other departments. They would get a lot of experience, and then an individual would leave for somewhere else along the I-90 corridor.
That would be my biggest concern, is that you're gonna take officers, so let's say they do get married, have a family, and they want to choose to move to a different community, they're gonna look for another job somewhere, and they're gonna move, so on the other side of the coin, you might be pushing people out and not wanting to stay a lifetime, say, I don't wanna stay here, my wife works over here, and she live over there, and we wanna move there, and so I'm just saying, it's kind of it's a delicate balance between, in the perfect world, we would want all of our employees to live in the city, but we know realistically that's probably not gonna happen. It's a small area, and let's face it, you know, Lakewood's 5 minutes away, Phoenix is 10 minutes away, Lewisburg's a couple minutes away. And so, and they're small communities, and people choose to live where they wanna live based on lots of different factors. Personal factors, family factors, school, whatever. And so, I would be reluctant to go for a lifetime just because I feel like a kid who's 22, he'll do anything to take a job. I'll take a job, I'll be in Jamestown, I'll move in, I'll get an apartment, and then the first time he finds something in another police agency, he might jump on it, because he doesn't wanna stay here for the rest of his life, or his family doesn't wanna stay. I'm playing the other side of the coin.
Yeah, but how many jobs are really out there outside of the city? Probably the city's got the biggest police department except for the state police, so are there gonna be that many openings in Lakewood or Bemis Point or the other places? You might know.
You have obviously you have the sheriff's department.
Yeah, and the sheriff's department, I'm not discounting that, but I'm just saying, how many are really going to be looking to move, or that many opportunities to move, to leave after they can train? I agree with Vicki, maybe 5 years, and I'm not saying lifetime, but maybe 5 is a little too short, maybe 7 is a little more, you're more committed to staying, and when you've been here for 7 years, it might not be quite as easy. If you bought a house and you started to pay that down, you might not wanna pick up and go. If you've got a decent place, you might decide to commit to staying. 5 years, you know, maybe you haven't even bought a house at that point.
I'm thinking 10, because I'm thinking half, because 20 and out, right? You can retire in 20 years. So at least half your time you have to be in the city. You know, I think that, I can live with 7, but I just think at least, 7 to 10 years, because then you're invested. You know, your kids have gone through the system, and, you may not have been, it's not bad, but, 5, I don't know.
I agree with you. I think 10 years is a good number to go with myself. I was ecstatic to find out that one of my former students moved in across the street. He was one of our new hires in the police department. And it's just great having him there. It's great knowing the chief lives close by too. I want officers in my neighborhood. They're good neighbors. So, and I think once they see the value and all of the good things in Jamestown here for 10 years, I think I'm going to stay. So I would be interested in 10 years. A lifetime might be too much. I don't know.
I don't have a problem with 10. We were talking about 5.
I know, we were
Are
talking
people
about
willing to
7.
move to 10? That's fine with me, because I agree. I've heard enough from Councilman Russell to say, there's a reason. And I think his reasons are valid for suggesting that people should live in the community.
It worked for him.
You're still here.
I
You
mean,
still
you
live
just,
here.
you just care. I mean, if
I
there's
know.
Right.
a house that's selling heroin somewhere, I mean, near you, I mean, you're obviously, very concerned about that.
And I do know that even though there's only 27%, I know that, the police department does some of the basketball games down at Washington School with the kids and stuff like that. And so just knowing that you can have that impact at a younger age, and then they see you around and they're waving at you and things like that, that's something that helps to grow that relationship between, you know, the community and the law.
You know, and I know Officer Five, before he retired, I mean, he grew up on the north side, you know, and, you know, Captain Swanson, you know, through the weed and seed stuff, you know, he has, when you talk about treating people good, you know, he didn't live in the neighborhood, you know, he didn't even live in the city, but he had a good rapport with the people of the city, you know, in the community, and so when he came down, everybody ran to his car, you know, kids, adults, you know, so it's just this, whatever, you know, like you said, you treat people good, they'll treat you good, you treat them like trash, you're gonna get.
I guess it's a form of community policing,
Exactly.
by living there.
Exactly.
So consensus would
Is
be.
it
I'm good with 10.
I was just throwing out.
I think it gives them more of a vested interest and a commitment to the community that we're all looking at. And I agree with you, half of the time that they're getting paid by the city.
And chances are many of them aren't gonna move up there.
I think.
Exactly, you got your house is good and paid for, you know, your escrow is coming down and, you know.
It doesn't pay to move a
Out of
couple
the
years after
agencies
you buy.
And it does, you know, you got 15, 20 years on a mortgage.
Out of the agencies that you mentioned, the list, do we know how many were negotiated and how many were actually imposed?
Well, most of them all the agencies that I mentioned, except for Buffalo, were put into the local law ordinance.
Okay.
Cities over 200 have to negotiate.
Okay.
I will say that in looking at some other local contracts, and this wasn't specifically for this purpose, Dunkirk was negotiated so that officers would not have to live in the city of Dunkirk. Salamanca was negotiated, and Olean was negotiated, so that officers would not want to live in, or not have to live in the city of James, or the city of those cities. So there's two ways to really do this. There's the issue of you can negotiate it, but also the state has permitted it to be done through local law as well. Currently in Jamestown's contract, there is no mention of police residency. It was an issue with the police arbitration, but that was separate from a local law.
So, just as a process, points of clarification, we will re-prepare the law for a 10-year period. We will then all most likely receive it in the mail. Since this is a local law, there is a process that we need to follow. We will then schedule a public hearing, and we will try to find a time that works best for all of you to be at the public hearing. We will have some capacity limits, and we will most likely have those in a larger space to allow the public to actually come in and speak. Once that happens, once the public hearing has been completed, the comments are finalized, then it will be presented to council for a vote.
I will add that my office received a lot of comments regarding this issue since it came out. What was interesting to note was the majority of Jamestown residents that made comments to my office were in favor of residency for police officers, and there were many non-Jamestown residents who were not in favor of that residency.
No surprise there.
The ones that from Jamestown, did they have a year? They just thought it was just a good idea to have a resident?
You know, some said it was not long enough for 5 years. Others didn't really have a comment. They just wanted to see police officers in their neighborhood, living in their neighborhood. Some were willing to, I know my realtor was willing to, you know, she'll help them find places to live and identify
Sure.
places for them. So.
Sure.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Right, we have a presentation now by Bus Patrol on the school bus stop arm camera program. This was,
Sure.
home from this meeting.
Councilmember Sheldon, there is Mr. Haglund is here for his parklet permit. I don't know if we want to keep him much later, but the folks from Bus Patrol can wait.
Sure.
If that's all right with all of you.
That's fine. Is this the the first parklet,
Will be the first
Crystal?
parklet.
Yay,
We're
yes.
excited.
Want to explain that again?
Sure, so if everyone recalls, we passed a parklet pilot program, and this will be the first parklet permit application for Four Below. We've invited Mr. Eric Haglund to join us tonight if anyone has any specific questions. His location is at 104 East 2nd Street, so where the old Mojo's was, if you're not familiar, right across from the Pine Street parking lot. Nice little area right there. So this will be directly in front of his building. It will extend the length of his building, and it'll be a built wooden structure platform. It will actually extend out from the sidewalk, but it actually has a little bit of a overlap with the sidewalk. So do you have any specific questions on that and how the structure is built? But it's Jeff, Larry, Scalise, myself, and Rob Smith met Mr. Haglund on site last week, Friday, I believe it was. We took a look at what his plans were. There is, yeah, Vicky's got the photo there. I don't know if you can see my markings on it, but we checked the dimensions, checked all of the requirements, made some suggestions, and the four of us agreed that this met the requirements of the program, and we're excited to recommend it for approval.
I think it's fair to say Mr. Haglund's expectations exceed his drawing.
Yes.
I'm
How much will be
smiling.
able to fit? So during this pandemic thing, right now,
Yep.
how many people can you see out there?
So with doing everything 6-foot spacing, I can have 3 tables of 4, so 12 people I could fit out there,
Oh.
with umbrellas, and also have, change up my drawing just a little bit. I'm gonna do more of a flower box, type thing. My mother-in-law is, adamant about having flowers, so I told her she can have at it. She's retired, so she can take care of my flowers.
And just to note, they don't show in the drawing. I did try to sketch them on there, but I don't think they're showing up very well. There will be whiskey barrels at the corners of each end to provide a little bit more substance in terms of some blocking. And, you know, that'll go kind of along with, I think, your design as well. So there'll be reflective tape and,
Yeah,
it'll be highly visible.
The logo that I'll put on the whiskey barrel will be similar to like a police officer's car, where when the lights hit it, it reflects back at you. So at nighttime, during the day, it'll just be like a sticker, but at nighttime, it'll actually create a positive light back at the driver coming at it.
And this allows you to serve alcohol outside?
I'll have to amend my license with the state,
Okay.
but once I get I can't amend the license till I get the approval. So once I get the, it's, you can't put the cart before the horse, so to speak. So, but yeah, I will be able to serve alcohol out there and food and all that kind of stuff. Until the amendment comes in with my license, I would just serve food out there and sodas and pops and waters and that kind of stuff until that other part comes through.
Councilman Ryan, just so you're aware, I don't think Mr. Haglund knows, so with the parklet permit as well as with the outside tables, the State Liquor Authority has authorized municipalities to automatically authorize the extension of the liquor license. So we have an alcohol control plan for any entity that is serving on an encroachment, whether that's a sidewalk or parklet area. And so what we typically do is we submit drawings to the State Liquor Authority with our alcohol control plan for that area. Mr. Haglund will sign it from our office, and as soon as my office submits it on behalf of the city, he's able to serve alcohol, and it becomes a permanent part of his license.
Oh, so once you submit it, we don't have to wait for somebody to
Nope,
respond, or once
not,
it's in,
not
it's in
under the
and he's
code
good?
regulations,
Okay.
yep. As long as the city has a control plan and has authorized it as a use of their encroachment, then it then becomes part of his permanent license.
So will this just take up one parking spot in your, in front, the one in front of your, just looking at the drawing?
Yeah, there's one spot that's a really big spot, and then there's other spots that are smaller, so, we were looking at that, and it would be one spot, and then in the wintertime, I do curbside pickup or DoorDash and that kind of stuff, and once I remove the structure, because it'll be in roughly 5 to 6 sections, and then I'll remove that and put it into storage for the wintertime, so that way plows can come through, and then I'll have that spot for the curbside pickup or to go, right directly in front.
And then this does allow for people to walk on the sidewalk.
Yep.
Okay. And I wanted to make sure that I was reading it.
Yeah, it's 5 feet from the front of the
Yeah.
building to the front of the structure.
That's what I assumed, but as you said with the drawing, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
You didn't have to walk.
Good job,
around.
Crystal.
So, since it's already almost in August, do you intend to have it out for this year, or is this for next year?
I was planning on getting it done this year. I wanted to, my goal is to, have it for, by September 13th for the start of football season. Because I'm trying to get some things going around football, since all the rest of the sports are kind of going by the wayside.
Yeah.
So I want to be able to have that and be able to have people sit outside and, that kind of stuff. So I want to get it done. As soon as I get the thumbs up to go ahead, I've already got half the building supplies figured out, and I'll just start putting it together and going from there.
So it's a seasonal thing, you'll do it until it snows and.
I believe in the approved plan, it was October 31st.
That's.
So it'll be,
Okay.
like I said, it'll be in 5 sections, and I have a huge enclosed trailer, so I'll just come down with my trailer, dismantle it, slide it into my trailer, lock it up, take it home, and then
And
next
ready
year.
for next
When
season.
can he open it back up in the spring?
I think that it's April first.
Yeah, it was on the
Good
program
job.
on that. I was gonna have a nice fire pit out there,
Oh,
so
you're
you
gonna
can,
fire pit?
I plan on doing a fire pit, so you can, warm up when it's cold.
That's a different permit.
If that's okay.
It's not near the structure.
I just personally want to think I've met with Eric a few times to discuss some issues that have happened, as a result of COVID to not only his business, but many businesses downtown. So thank you, Eric, for putting this together and trying to do what you can to work out with the city of Crystal. Thanks for responding to him quickly and getting this done so we can have it this year.
Yeah, we're excited.
Yeah, I think it'll be a nice change to, go to regular units to sit outside, outside downtown, which will be very nice. So, looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
Excuse
me.
May I just ask, that's an approval, right?
That's
Yes, it is.
Thumbs up.
Right.
Those points are,
Yeah.
for those of you who are my age, it's not Mojo's, it's the drive shop.
Get it right, right?
Cafe upstairs, the drive shop.
There's something there was.
All right, so we'll move on to the presentation by Olsen Patrol about the stop arm program.
Yeah, they should be in the waiting room, I believe.
Just give us a second to get the technology with you.
Hopefully they are, because I was emailing them to make sure.
Bus Patrol, are you on the call?
They may be in the waiting room, Eddie.
Got it.
Not talking.
Not talk so for sure. There's anyone in the waiting room.
Better work with the baby.
Oh, yeah. No presentation.
I emailed them. 'Cause they were wondering if we're still on, and I told them we were.
We want to move to the total rate card request then?
Yeah, we'll see if they come back on.
Okay.
If not, we can talk about it.
We have a total rate card request from Dave Warren Auto Group. Rates are listed here. Copies of insurance. Everything is at old rates. Get that signed. Item number 13 actually has been pulled. That was the discussion regarding the annual Talk with Strider Labor Day weekend race. They have decided not to hold that event this year, Tony. Sorry. Another thing canceled.
I'll do it by myself.
And do it virtually, maybe?
On the flip side though, kids can, start this football
Yes,
sport.
we got to go ahead for cross country.
September 22nd, 21st.
Just there.
Just gonna say, did you just hang up on me?
It doesn't look like they'll be able to make it today. Just got a text from them, so we'll just reschedule them for the next work session.
All right. So we'll do that next time. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, and under new business, the request to erect stop signs on Counter Avenue at the corner of Pleasant View. There was an accident just last week where somebody ran the stop sign and hit another car and took out the fire hydrant that was on the corner of that day. There was another accident in March on that same intersection. There was one last year in that corner as well. So I guess we need to have the police department take a look at the accident history on that and traffic count as well.
Traffic division will take care of it.
Yeah. But Councilman Doltz and myself met with about a dozen of the neighbors today who were pretty adamant that this needs to happen.
This has been an ongoing issue for several years. Towner is in great shape because of it. But unfortunately, it creates a speedway. And from Lakeview, there's a stop sign at Beachview, and then it's wide open all the way down to Hotchkiss. And it is a school zone, and there are no sidewalks on either Pleasant View or Towner, which makes the problem even worse because kids walk in the street, people walk in the street, they walk their dogs, whatever. And there have been accidents there, and so they would like to see a four-way stop at the Towner Pleasant View corner to kind of alleviate that raceway from Beachview all the way down to Hotchkiss. And again, it's a popular route too for JCC students. They cut down that way and down by your house to get the back of the campus. So they have been adamant about this for several years. And with the recent accidents there, Brent and I met with them this afternoon, and they wanted to see if we could speed that process and get it going as fast as possible, especially with school starting here in a couple of weeks. Try to alleviate some of the speed there. That's what we have.
We'll get a report back.
Okay.
Thank you. So, there's nothing else for public safety at this point?
And then the Prendergast Avenue one as well, just to.
Oh, yep.
Yeah.
Prendergast Avenue.
Prendergast and Price. Yeah. Now, there are a couple stop signs within that district, but it is pretty busy and they fly. And again, that street's been redone and, as we discussed before, this time of year especially, it's just the speed on that street. It's a very busy street. There are a lot of kids on the street. I don't know if there's been accidents, but it's a safety issue on that street as well, so we'll maybe take a look at that.
Has there been a formal request on that?
It came through me.
Yes.
Yes.
To you guys, John.
Look at that also?
Thank you.
And a couple months ago, we did request that the police department put the speed trailer down there.
Right, there was a speed.
It went out for a week or so while it was there, and then people forget about it. They pull it out. So stop sign is a more permanent structure.
I don't know if this is, the right place, but the email that did you receive from, Melissa at her meeting about, I don't know,
Yes.
I don't think you, I don't know if you were CC, Jeff.
I was, but I forwarded it on to Tom. That's
So
all.
I don't know if Jeff knows anything about doing, I'll send it to you, Jeff, as, a
I got
request
it.
to, you got it?
I got it.
So maybe doing, I don't
You
know
got
if
it.
that
Like
would.
9 requests in here, so
Yeah.
we'll look at them all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Since
No,
we were
I-
talking about traffic and.
But, yeah, I think you should point out that we did receive that email today from Melissa Paternity, and so I think I want to get mail from our residents, and she had a long list of concerns, and we're looking at them, and I'll get a hold of her and talk with her, but it's probably going to be,
It's gonna take a little while.
It's gonna take a little while, 'cause
Well, I
it was-
understand that her kid is long, but she's very.
She saved the world.
She's very thorough.
Yes, yeah.
Go Melissa.
President Doles, did you want to bring up the recent
Oh, I
concerns
did.
about?
I was gonna do that, new business, we can, Councilman Russell and I also, under new business, received a request from a Northside resident, about Buffalo Street. It's kind of unique, I guess I never really thought about it. Washington Middle School and Ring School are very close in proximity. And if you go down Buffalo Street from Lakeview, when you get about a block or two, you have a 20-mile-an-hour school zone. As soon as you pass Wash, it goes back to 30 again for a very short period of time. And then it goes back to 20 again during the school hours. So the request was to see it, can we keep it 20 miles an hour all the way through that zone? Because especially if they're going down the hill, they speed up and then they have to slow down again. This way, if it's 20 miles, it should be 20 miles an hour from right before Wash School all the way down past Ring School. Because it's too confusing to go 20, 30, 20. And if people speed up, and it's not 20, 30, 20, it's more like 30, 40, 50. No. That would be something we would want to look at. And then there were some other parking ones, but I'll work with Jeff on that as well.
Shoot me an email.
I'll shoot you a file on that. We're just gonna bring that up tonight. There was some issues around parking around the bend there. It's hard to see, especially when people have to get into Washington Middle School, you have to go up Pleasant View. You can't turn in off Buffalo, so it's very difficult to make that turn with that block of cars that are right there on the corner. So I'll email. Just some safety issues.
Councilman Dilson and I have already decided that we're gonna go to 20 mile all over the city. I think it's because we're getting old, but.
Because if you made it 20 throughout the city, that means they would do
They drive 30.
35 instead of
Yeah.
45.
Yeah.
Live on a brick street, they don't.
I know, that's the problem, we pave our streets and.
We will be issuing more speeding tickets at that point. So
Yeah.
Don't change it to, from brick.
It's, I like brick, but a lot of people like the brick, but it's slippery and bumpy.
It is. Very simple. But I
I
like.
think that's it from. We'll move on to Public Works, Councilman Nelson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. We had, our first 3 resolutions were already discussed in finance and approved. Under informational reports, we have a discussion on the opening the concrete bids for the Bowen Street work. And I think, Jeff, you had a bid from our Patty.
So we received 2 bids.
Two bids.
Our Patty being the lowest.
The low bid was our Patty.
Our Patty, $146,755, which is just about right where our
Yeah.
engineer's estimate was for it. Coming out of CDBG funding. It's something that was done programmed. Any questions or?
Well, I had a question till I rode down Bowen Street on the way to the meeting tonight. There's no question it needs work, so.
Speaks for itself.
It does, yeah.
Wish we could do 10 of these a year.
Right. And then we have an update from Dave Leathers from the BPU regarding changes to the garbage container program and utility disconnection. So
I've got one other one.
You got
from
one other
business
one to
also,
add?
so
After?
Dave, go
Okay.
ahead.
All right.
You sure you don't wanna go?
It's up to you.
Just a couple of brief items. BPU staff has continued to work on developing a citywide garbage container program. At this point, we are reviewing with BPU board members, and we're trying to get it into the 2021 solid waste budget. If we can work this in and get it approved, it would likely be implemented sometime next summer. So we would have a rate schedule for solid waste effective January 1st with some minor changes, and then another rate schedule change with some new rules related to citywide garbage containers for all residents and how that would work. So it's just a bit of a heads up that we continue to work on this. We've talked about it quite a bit over the last several years. It's going to be a huge change because by far the majority of our customers do not use containers to begin with, let alone containers with lids. And a lot of people are going to have questions and criticisms and complaints. So we're working through that with the BPU board right now. As that gets progressed and as that hopefully gets approved into the budget, then we'll make sure that we're coming to council meetings and explaining where we're at and where we're going. We've developed frequently asked questions already, and we've already had a couple of drafts of our rate schedules and what that looks like. But we're pretty excited about the opportunity for the safety of our employees, but also for the improved look as you go around the city and have standardized cans and not have bags and other debris in the neighborhood. So right now we're standardizing on a 95-gallon can. There will be some residents that will need a smaller can, and we'll probably make that available on an as requested basis, but more to follow on that. Okay. The other item has to do with the state moratorium on utility shutoffs. So the state of emergency for the COVID-19 pandemic currently is set to expire on September 7th. So that means that there's some new rules that come out at that time related to shutoff moratoriums. So our customers continue to be protected if they have and can self-certify and show that they've had a negative financial impact because of the pandemic after March 7th of this year. So there's a form that customers would have to come in and show that they've had a financial hardship because of the pandemic, and then they would be continue in the shutoff moratorium until March 31st of next year. However, all of our other customers that do have the ability to pay disconnect notices and shutoffs, will go back into normal operation after September 7th unless something changes. So we're trying to get more communications out on that. Everybody in their bills that they're receiving the last two cycles at the end of August and the first two cycles in September, we'll get a notice explaining that program. But right now, effective September 9th, we will be communicating to customers if they don't come in and sign up for a payment agreement, if they don't go and seek emergency heat or other public assistance opportunities that exist in the local community, then they're at risk of being disconnected. If you have any specific questions about that, just give me a call or let me know. And our customer service lobby is open again on regular hours, Monday through Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, then we, under new business, we had the request for the stop sign on Powder and Pleasant View, which we already talked about in the email from Melissa Caramini that we've already mentioned. And is there one more?
Yeah, just an update. I got a call this afternoon on the Smart Tourism Transportation Project. I think we talked about that at the last council meeting, which is the project to upgrade the smart meters downtown and the tourism pedestrian transportation signage for the downtown. It's a federal aided project. Just a quick history, we bid it out, we received no bids, we rebid it. The bids came back in about $100,000 plus higher than what was estimated because of the price of the meters. jumped up $400 a meter during the COVID process. And working with the state, because it's a federal aid project, we couldn't tweak the amounts in the contract to meet our needs. So we were getting ready to rebid it, so we pulled it off of the agenda for tonight. Well, late this afternoon, I got a call from the state, and they said, well, hold on, we might be able to fund more of the project. So they're gonna get back to me this week. The only reason I'm bringing it up is because in order to get the project started, if they came in and met the $100,000 plus amount, you might be seeing a resolution coming out later this week that I'd like to consider for the next boarding session. More to come.
Maybe just think for things for people to chew on. We definitely don't have to go into any discussion to it tonight, but you forwarded an email a couple of weeks ago from a constituent thinking we should rename one of the streets after Dr. Martin Luther King. And then I had, probably about 2 days later, someone reached out to me about wanting to do some sort of mural somewhere in town. I sent it to public safety, but Brent said it probably should go to public works. I just said I would bring it to council and people kind of ruminate on it a little bit before we went anywhere, and probably wouldn't be anything to start anytime soon with summer winding down. But just something to kind of put on people's radars, I think, and I just don't want to. I don't know, well, a lot to talk about tonight, so I don't want to prolong the discussion. I just wanted to make sure people knew that as people from the community wanted to kind of recommend that they wanted to kind of do some things.
Can you forward any information to the rest of us?
I
Absolutely.
have not seen anything. of it.
No, I got it from, Eddie sent it to, did you send it to me?
And then we have questions there.
Right, right.
The renaming of the street came from a constituent, which I forwarded to the Public Safety
Right.
Committee
And then
for any further discussion.
the other thing, somebody reached out to me on my messenger on Facebook and said he's a local artist and he would like to do some sort of Black Lives Matter or something like that, mural community painting project, and I said I would have to take that to council, so I can share with you screen on a Facebook post, or I can reach out to that person and have them kind of make a little bit more structured proposal, but I'm happy to send that.
I've had a couple conversations too, and one of the suggestions that, that I have made, I mean, that has to be, but I think, well, what about 11th and Lafayette, down at the park, and maybe you have like Black Lives, and then, the other part, Lives Matter, and so I talked to a few people, about that stuff coming in that.
Oh, and somebody who's like, instead of Dr. Martin Luther King, can we make it local with Catherine Harris?
Make it into artists.
So, I mean, those are just, I will certainly try to pull that for you, Norman, and send it to the whole council, but that's just something that people have been asking about.
At one point, there was talk when you get off Washington and you take the off-ramp down to like Baker Street. There's that huge area, and at one point, somebody had come in discussing doing a
Billy
mural
Torres.
there.
That was,
They
that
looked at
was
that.
Billy Torres
Billy
with the
Torres.
GA home,
Right, right, and
and his
then-
position in that home has changed.
Right, I understand, but that never happened, but that you can see from the Riverwalk and where you're gonna have the lighting under that bridge. That would be a wonderful, I'm trying, but I said as an idea or food for thought, there's a lot of traffic there.
Well, because you can see
from-
Lucy on one
Yes,
side.
you can see a lot of vantage points, and if they get the lighting done under the bridge,
Oh my
that
God,
would be a
that'd be
beautiful area. And a lot of people, not just, you get a lot of visibility, and not, just a thought.
Yeah, I
Because
just
that was
told folks that I would bring it,
Yeah.
not for any kind of
But no, that
decision
would,
tonight, just for people to think about, and once I pull everything together, I'll do it.
and I think you might be able to see from the comedy center, even from that backside.
Yeah, you would be.
Yeah, I think
Would
you
be.
get a lot of visibility. I don't just,
I'd love to see a mural that included Catherine Harris, who
Yeah,
uses the
yeah.
local history and Martin Luther King. That'd be kind of a neat, it's a teachable moment,
Yeah,
as
and
you
it's-
might say.
and it's not
Yeah.
far from the Fenton History
Yeah,
Museum either.
yeah.
So you've got all of the tie-in with
It would be like all our local celebrities,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, no, but that'd be,
Would be
that
nice
could
to
be a
have
really
something
good
like
one.
Yeah.
You know, everybody who,
Anybody
I mean,
Robert H. Jackson.
Yeah, Robert Jackson, Yeah.
Jeff, do you know if TMET has some issues getting permits to do that, because that may have been another.
That's where it got tripped up last
I
time.
think
It's a
so.
very narrow, terrace area down
Yeah.
through there, and
painting
it's
on
quite
it.
high. If you
Painting.
looked at it.
Painting.
They
That's
had-
where I was thinking it got.
They were looking at
why
lifts,
didn't
and they were
happen.
gonna get back to us, and then we never heard anything.
Is that,
from them.
is that the state, that arterial front
Yeah.
too?
I'm sorry?
That's part of the
Oh.
state
Yeah.
road?
It's state,
That's the other.
and that may have been part of the reason it got slowed down also.
I just know when we even did graffiti abatement projects through the coalition, we had to get state approval just to even paint over graffiti on
Yeah.
all of those.
Right.
Or remove it, yeah.
There might be more inclined now, who knows, but if you could work out the details, I didn't know why it failed, I remember them talking to him.
I think you're right, Marie, though, he left position to kind of just.
Yeah, well, that's what I said, but I just thought that's a great, it was a really good idea in that
It's
area.
not
If it could be
insurmountable.
done, if you could jump over all the hurdles and hoops to get to, that would be
Well, we also
very.
have to find out, like, who's gonna run this ship here too, from the community. I mean, we've had a couple of people come up to us.
But I'm just
we-
saying that when you start thinking, throw that location, and if it can be done, I think
Right.
it'd get a lot more people might see it depending on where they're looking.
So, Councilman Reinhardt, if you have anyone that you'd like our office to help coordinate a meeting, together to talk about that, we're happy to do so, just feel
Yep,
free to connect
I
with
will
our office.
reach out to the same people and, make sure the rest of the council gets that email. That we forwarded to public safety. I think I said I was gonna send it to public works.
Well, that's all we have for public works.
Going on to any new business for the mayor's report? Anything else to come before the council? Mayor? go ahead.
Great. I have, only a few items, for general session for the council. And I do have 4 items for executive session. Those involve, 2 lawsuits and 1 collective bargaining agreement. For the general items, I just want to first off, say thank you to, Dave Leathers, and the BPU and his team for allowing us to meet in this space. City Hall has some logistical challenges to allow us to spread out appropriately without removing fixtures and removing chairs and things like that. So we're very grateful to Mr. Leathers and his team for allowing us to use the space tonight and keep the lights on for us, right? As they're running the power plant for testing it out.
Are we gonna, what are we doing next week? For the voting session, do we want to do this again here, or do we want to go back to City Hall? How are we going to do that? This is comfortable, I don't know, I mean, if we're on the floor of the council chambers, we're closer together. So I would say this comes down to comfort level. We'll just, I mean, I don't get any thoughts on that.
No thoughts yet. I was trying to see how tonight was going to go first and then make a decision, but I'm happy to get your feedback after tonight and see where we can meet for the next one. So we'll figure that out by Thursday for everyone. I'll make sure there's enough space. I do want to just give a brief update in terms of the COVID-19 virus. Many of you may have heard today the county has announced a large spike in cases, specifically from a manufacturer in Dunkirk. That was announced today. I did receive a call from the county. Many of those individuals that may have been infected actually work at that processing facility and live in the city of Jamestown. So we do want to remind all of you, as well as remind the public, that we have to remain vigilant during this time, that we need to continue wearing a mask and social distancing. We're definitely not out of the woods, and in many cases, the CDC is predicting that there may be another spike coming this fall. So we do want to just remind all of our constituents that this is still around here, to be cautious, to continue doing the things that we're doing, and that we may continue to see a bit of a spike here in the city. We are taking every precaution. We have been incredibly fortunate that our city employees have generally remained healthy throughout this process. We continue to clean regularly, maintain things and sanitize our services across the city. But we do want to remind the public that they need to continue wearing a mask and continue social distancing. As much as I would have liked to, as well as the county executive, ask that restrictions be lifted here in Chautauqua County and in Western New York has actually seen an increase in infections. And so we need to be very cautious of that going forward. If we want to be able to lessen those restrictions, we need to make sure that we have things under control. And although our rate of infection still remains low, we are seeing more of a spike than many other parts of New York State at this time. So I just wanted to urge caution, and as you go about talking to constituents, please urge caution for them as well. The last thing I have just for general session was to talk a bit about the ambulance situation here in the city of Jamestown. I do want to let the council know that we've had conversations with the county. The county has asked us as a city if we are in a position to provide billing as part of our ambulance service for our residents. We are not yet in that position. We obviously still have capacity issues, but the county does provide a medic to certain ambulance calls, which our firefighters, we have paramedics. However, we don't typically provide an advanced life support medic on the calls that we run here in the city of Jamestown. We are looking at ways we can increase the city's ambulance capacity, and so we are getting ready to put those things together and then start to talk to council members about what that may look like here in the city. In addition, we do continue to talk to ambulance providers to see if there's some potential for us to have increased capacity in that regard. But at this time, the county has asked that we enter into a shared services agreement with them. They are providing a medic at no cost to us for some of our calls. They're asking that once we start billing, or if we start billing for services, that medic be reimbursed, that the city receive a portion of whatever is billed, that the county receive a portion for providing that advanced life support medic. We are working with the county to try to figure out what that would look like. I know Councilmember Sheldon has been part of the conversation. I know President Dulce has been in some of the conversations as well as members of our staff. We are working to figure out what would be the best plan of attack for the city and how an agreement may look with the county. I just wanted to give everyone an update on that we were actively working with them to ensure that we have the best possible care for our residents here in Jamestown. And I don't know if Councilmember Sheldon or President Dulce, you guys want to add any additional information.
Just that we had a productive meeting with the county officials, county executive, and some of the emergency services personnel. Councilman Sheldon was there, the mayor, and so we came together last week and we had a productive meeting. There'll be more to follow.
Councilwoman Edlund has your two favorite words, no cost.
I know. Although nothing in life is ever free.
I was waiting for you to say that.
So I did want to just give everyone an update to let you know we are continuing to work on that. We're hoping to have a more formalized plan, hopefully next month, for everyone to review after we speak with the Finance Committee about what kind of reimagined ambulance and fire operations may look like here in the city of Jamestown. Okay. That is it, besides my 4 items for executive session.
So 200 possible litigation, 2 collective bargaining.
I have 3 for litigation and 1 for collective bargaining.
3 and 1 instead of 2. All right, do I have a motion to go
So
into
moved.
executive session? Moved by Council, I don't have to look at the Zoom. Another second? So moved by Councilwoman Reinhardt. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I assume no action will be taken?
No action will be taken for these. If I could have to stay Dave Leathers, Elliot Ramondo, if we could have Crystal Surdick, as well as Matt Kuhn join us.
We'll give you the minute